Okay, welcome everybody. This is the 6th of April 2023, delivery system sync and demo. We have some discussion points. Skarbek, first one is yours.
Thank you, Michele. Good morning, everyone. Because I am soon to go on paternity leave, I'm trying to work with Michele to discover what in the world to do with Q2. I would imagine the metrics work, although it's great and fun, it's probably not going to be fun, but for so long. And I think we should start making some headway towards various improvements for fun deployment measures and introducing new capabilities and making life easier for engineering as a whole. So think experimental deployments as one of the key things that I'm kind of like really eyeballing personally, but also trying to find an alignment with us and our current CTO with the desire for just talking about rollbacks, making it easier, quicker, etc. So one of those items, I've put together Epic 954, which is just kind of this is what I'm currently envisioning as a path that enables us to provide those deployment methods. This doesn't give us those deployment mechanisms. It's just a path of what I think the work we should try to tackle that gets us closer to that goalpost. So I would like to encourage everyone to take a gander. It's not done. It's still very much a work in progress. I'm sure there are some items in here that I've missed, but if you all open, I'm not going to share my screen. But if you go to that Epic, there's a small section called Proposed Path, where I highlight 3 target items that I think are kind of key in this. The first one being we need to look at some sort of service mesh technology, whatever that may be. If you go to the linked Epic, which is currently owned by the reliability team, it's still in a state where we're trying to gather ideas, requirements, and then create a bunch of POCs. Personally, I'm not looking forward to trying to POC every piece of technology under the sun. I'd rather kind of look at which ones are best available to what we need in the team delivery and try to vouch for that and test it out and make it do what we want to. And then, but hopefully we build it out generically enough where other teams could just start using it as they deem necessary. So an example of this would be that the reliability team is looking for ways to replace HA proxy. Whether they want to use a service mesh or something else completely different is completely up to them. But if we were to say leverage Istio, Istio does look like it effectively accomplishes all the goals listed in that Epic or that discovery issue that they've got fired up for that Epic. So say, for example, we leverage Istio for what we want. If we create it or deploy it in a generic enough way that reliability could use it, they could just replace HA proxy all they want to, no work needed from us. Because my goal here is to look at what we need to enable ourselves to deploy stuff differently to enable more features. I don't care how traffic gets to us as long as it gets to us and that we can manage it the way that we want to. The other thing to note here is our configurations and deployments are kind of complicated to muck with and such. So that's one of the other target items. And there's a issue on there with a bunch of stuff. So take a look at this Epic. Again, it's not complete. I'm looking for feedback overall as it is. And then we could try to refine it in the future as, that's one of the goals here. But this is a future forward thinking style of issue because it's, Q2 is still a ways out. Vladimir.
Yes. So I think this topic was discussed like a few times, at least with different people.
Yeah.
I also discussed with Michele what's going to be my next goal after I finish with these funny release management duties. And I think I'm super keen and super excited to use my knowledge to implement the things that I already did, and I think that's gonna be challenging, but it's very very interesting, exciting project. So my idea here is to not mess with existing stuff, because we have so many things in place, and those things are sometimes overcomplicated and over-engineered, honestly. I would like to start with POC, where we have like clean cluster with all bells and whistles that we put on these clusters, including, like, I don't know, Prometheus or whatever, like everything that we currently have, plus service mesh, plus I think it's a good starting point to manage these cluster in a different way. I'm talking about Flux. Try well, like the first goal is to create a cluster that will be reproducible in a few minutes with everything that comes with this cluster, and create the way to how to say, like, to replace those clusters very quickly. Then the second portion would be to actually figure out how to install and manage GitLab on that cluster in the same way as all other cluster components managed, right? So, like, for example, bring GitLab, like make GitLab installed by Flux. Then the ultimate goal would be to have the kind of the package, the tech stack packaged, and this tech stack, when you just say, like, create me new cluster, I don't know how, but like, create me new cluster, and this cluster comes with everything that is required to run GitLab, and it exposes one single endpoint that is kind of entry point for the GitLab instance. Then hopefully we have pre-environment. We could play around on pre-environment. We could play around Cloudflare, move Cloudflare DNS load balancer to Cloudflare, like a real load balancer with backends, with origins, I think it calls on Cloudflare. Then hook this cluster or multiple clusters that we created to this Cloudflare global load balancer on pre-environment, play around and see how we can leverage these blue-green deployments, blue-green clusters, rollouts like canaries or something like that, like play around with the traffic and the routing. And then we can move forward if we satisfied with what we have. So I think this is kind of the path that I have in mind.
So I don't disagree with your path. I do think there's a lot of work in the path that you describe, however, and I'm trying to narrow the scope down to the bare minimum that we need to care about for our team. Because there's a lot of stuff you described that I don't think is really our responsibility, or really shouldn't be our responsibility. But that being said, again, I want to make sure that we've got configurations in place where, say, the Cloudflare stuff specifically that you're talking about, I think is out of scope. We could be convinced otherwise and such, but I don't want to use our time to talk about that at the moment. I think that's stuff that reliability teams should be able to take care of. So if we implement a service mesh and we get it rolling the way we need to, and the functionality works the way that we desire, hopefully we could then later transition Cloudflare to doing it precisely what you described, leveraging the technology stack that we built inside of our clusters. So save that for the future, hopefully. But the other item you mentioned was configurations and the use of Flux. I want to encourage us to go down that path and start making use of that technology. I think most of us are already aware that what's his name? Someone on the Reliability Foundation's team is going to do a demo for us.
Milad is going to do a
Milad,
demo for us.
Yes. So he's going to do a demo for us with Flux. He might have to redo some of it because the pre-cluster was accidentally bashed, but so be it. But one of the linked issues on that epic talks about simplifying our configurations in kind of a step format. So right now our configurations are kind of terrible. Let's simplify them. Let's then switch them over to managing manifest, and then let's switch over to using Flux or whatever we end up landing on. But I'm really keen on Flux just because the GitLab products is integrating with it. I know a lot of people in reliability are keen on Argo. I personally don't care, but I think there's some step work that we need to accomplish beforehand before we get to the point of just swapping completely over to GitOps. That's what I'm trying to convey with this epic as some of the pre-work that needs to be done before we can take advantage of those things. So,
I want to one moment, Vladimir. I want to be sure that we are discussing the right scope, right? So let's remember that this is going to be an OKR iteration probably. It's like 3 months where we also have release management in the path. We have Scarbeck that is not into the game with us for some of these or this quarter. And so we need to be sure that we keep the scope very focused and we deliver value at the end of the quarter with this activity, right? We really need to be very mindful of that and very sure that we are pretty sharp with this scope. So I think that all the ideas here are extremely valuable. For sure. Actually, Vladimir, if you have this big picture in mind, I recommend you to open an issue and describe it end to end, how it should look like, especially with explanation and diagrams and everything. That is something we can refer to later, because otherwise, meetings are not always the best one to do so. And then we can see how this piece of work we want to work actually fits in the big picture, right?
One thing I wanted to add, that the thing that this big picture that I described, it's not most likely, it will almost definitely gonna spread across multiple quarters. So it's not like we do that in 2 weeks. That's one thing. And another thing is that there is another thing that simplify our deployments, and as a part of this epic, maybe we might want to think about how we separate auto deploys and auto deploy pipelines from the packages, because there is no need to build the package every time if you want to update the Kubernetes clusters. You just need one simple Docker image. It's probably gonna have a lot of pitfalls, like Gitali stuck to the version, and it's gonna be difficult. But in order to iterate very quickly and in order to get the value from this system in vacuum that I just described, we just need to simplify the not only CD part, because this is simplifying CD part, but we also need to simplify CI part. And for CI part, for GitLab.com, we only need Docker images. That's it. We don't need anything else.
So can you repeat the question? Because I kind of lost the audio for a bit, so I don't know what you said. I think I got what you said, but
it's not a question, it's a suggestion. As part of this epic, maybe in order to prepare for having this kind of infrastructure in vacuum that we all dreaming about. We might want to want to improve our the way how we actually deploy the things, and I think for that sort of for auto deploys and for continuous deployments, we don't need to build the packages. We just need to build the Docker images, right? And kind of separating packaging from the Docker imaging.
What do you mean? So we don't need to build the packages
and all these things.
So you don't want to build Omnibus, you just want to build CNG. Yeah, this
images.
Is what you say.
If CNG, yeah.
But what do we do with Gitly?
That's another question, of course.
Okay.
Ideally, Gitly, we I don't know, like beginning of the next year, Gitly will be on Kubernetes, and we'll all be super happy about this. But this is kind of dreams. I don't know. But in order to get like a real value from this setup, we need to get rid of packages.
Now I got you.
And maybe we can do in the prior to, maybe we can do something in this iteration in order to prepare for this or something like this. I don't know. That's my suggestion.
Is there something we can do, Tim, about this?
I would suggest spinning up an issue for discussion to figure out what we could improve here. Like we're using CNG images everywhere because these are the same Docker images that we ship to our customers. So this is one of our methods of dogfooding, and this is one of our methods that we use to validate that what distribution builds would be usable for our customers. So if we want to stray away from that path, we got to figure out what we want to do at that point, because we would have to re-engineer what CNG is going to do at that point. And I feel like that's a dangerous path to be walking down. So we need to figure out what optimizations we're looking for if we want to chase that. I'm all for exploring it. I think we're going to end up raising a lot of questions to a lot of teams if we go down that path. And everyone's going to need to be aware of that effort. Because that'll change various ways, that unlocks capabilities for deploying different things. So we just need to make other engineering teams aware that we want to go down that path if we choose to.
Vladimir, do you mind to open this discussion issue?
Okay, but do we actually publish those CNG images to, like the CNG images that we built during the auto deploys, where they are going?
The auto deploy images, no. The process of building and testing those images is the same process used for the release images, though.
Okay.
So the monthly release, when you tag the monthly release, you actually publish one of those images. So you tag one of those images and you publish one of the images that you used as a release candidate.
In a transitive fashion, yes. Like what we're testing here is the build process of CNG as part of our auto deploy mechanism. So if we want to stray away from that, that's going to be a large conversation with a lot of teams.
Great. Okay. Any other questions about this? Probably people will need time also to go through the epic. And so please, let's continue the discussion on the epic itself. And Vladimir, please open the two issues that we spoke about, one discussion issue that we just proposed. And also it would be also good to add your brain dump of how this entire picture should look like, as you described it before in an issue. So we can actually always refer to that. Ahmad.
Yes, so I wanted to shed the light on this discussion because I think we discussed it 2 days ago with the APAC time. So I wanted to bring it here also, like, so we can converse more about it using ClickHouse to supplement Prometheus for some analytical data. Just like to begin with, like I'm not aiming to replace the whole metrics setup we have because we already are using this. But wanted to make it easier for some metrics, like because like some metrics are actually not accurate, like getting the failed deployments or something like that. So I wanted to utilize more using some analytical database for such use case. Questions, discussion items, anything, anybody wants to add anything?
So yeah,
again, I think I already pointed this is like replacing completely in order to solve like a couple of small issues is not, it's not the way to go, I think. And I completely agree with Skarbek's comment on this issue that we need to get maximum what we can from Prometheus. And if we definitely won't be able to do to gather those metrics from Prometheus, then we implement the other way. But I also wanted to say that we need to keep in mind that again, if we are going to kind of cloud native way of doing things with like a Flux and with all these nice technologies like keyed auto scaling and etc. Prometheus has much better integration with those systems. Like if you want to kind of rely your scaling objects, for example, on certain metric, then Prometheus is kind of default way to go. There is probably the way to hook cloud, whatever, ClickHouse, but it's going to be much more difficult, I think. So Prometheus is the second graduated project for CNCF. Therefore, there is much more ecosystem around it.
So I want to take a step back here. We are not planning to replace Prometheus, right? So there was not the proposal so far. So it was probably to aid what Prometheus couldn't do in the case we start to get data that is not accurate enough for our use. Am I understanding? My understanding correct?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I think this is like still stands where we're gonna hit the limit that we're gonna hit. Maybe this is not something we can, it's not something we do as part of this OKR or this quarter or the next quarter and so on. I think it's something we need to keep in mind that could be a way forward in the moment that our metrics are not accurate enough for the goal we want to achieve, right?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, the proposal for me is like still stand. Let's keep it there. Replacing for sure is not something that we can do it lightly. But I think we highlighted enough pros and cons of why we want to do that and everything there. So let's keep that in mind in the case that in 1 year where we actually have data and we have doubts about the accuracy of it, we can refer to that issue, understand if there is a new pathway to take or not, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Well, also, I want to bring up that, what's it called? So how we currently have, our metrics right now, it's not that they are inaccurate, it's just how we collect them right now. It's very difficult to visualize. I was wondering if we could also try to look for a solution to kind of replace these quote unquote the total metrics, like the delivery deployment started total, instead of doing that, have some other set of metrics that we can as we kind of discussed further before, right? How we can concatenate the number at the visualization step instead of on the metric step. But anyways, like I was wondering if we can also have that kind of discussion. Yeah, because as I kind of mentioned in my comment, right? It's a whole tool that we need to like incorporate, like although a lot of other teams do use it, right? So we do get that benefit of getting their help and their expertise. You know, we still need to ramp up to it if we want to use it. We still need to brush up on our SQL if we want to use it, stuff like that. And then, you know, it's kind of like adding more to our stack of expertise to use this. So just like keeping that in mind, if we could solve this problem using the tools that we have, aka Prometheus, like that would, yeah, be a pretty good solution as well. I'm not opposed to the idea though. Mainly because other teams also use it and I see the benefit of it.
I think if it's Ruben managed to convert his traces to the metrics, as we discussed in the past, then gonna solve a lot of problems like this.
So that's one MR away. I have one last MR to add a CI job to our coordinator pipeline that actually generates those metrics. Of course, after that, we will need to adjust the labels because I've not added all the labels that we discussed, but adding labels is a small task. So.
Thank you. Anything else to add on this discussion point?
I have a question, but it's kind of unrelated, but tangentially related. I recently saw a demo from the Foundations team where they were, and I think Vladimir, you brought this up probably a month or two ago. The use of Loki or Tempo, produced by Grafana. The demo that the Foundations team was kind of neat. Like this is the first time I saw Loki and Tempo in use. I'm wondering if, you know, instead of ClickHouse, if we're still not happy with what Prometheus is providing us, I wonder, should Foundations move forward with Loki? I wonder if that would be beneficial to us, because then we could apply counts to the actual log messages. And since we log everything that we do, that would be just another way to gather the data. And then it's all inside of Grafana anyways, but this is also dependent on implementation of Loki, which I don't know if is actually going to happen or not. I think they're just testing it out at the moment.
I think that we shelved this project because they are still testing this and enabling Loki and Tempo on ops instance gonna take a lot of time, I think. But definitely as a long-term plan, Loki and Tempo plus Grafana, they work just brilliant. So I think it's I saw the presentation with the traffic flow where like everything is flying around with numbers and requests per second, and it's kind of, it not only looks cool, but it's also very useful, I think. And I would definitely go for Loki and Tempo in the future.
We have this issue open, right? To consider that in the future. This is like, for sure, it's not something that is in the scope of this OKR. It's something that probably will go back to a future iteration of this work, at least to look into that. And actually, I really appreciate that there is some work being done, reliability side around that we can just like plug in or POC after the basic infrastructure is there without having us to go there and pioneer that first. So it's good that we have it. It's good that we can keep it in mind. Let's always like understand if, is the right tool for the job for us or not, and how these things can all log together and everything, right? So probably the final goal of having a single place where we have metrics, logs, and traces, or at least, traces, they don't have to be in a different database, but maybe we can pull them in into Loki somehow from Elasticsearch, I think would be great. Okay. Anything else? No. So point C is mine. This is like general discussion on the Epic for Amavoro OKR, right? So we are 3 weeks out to the end of the quarter. We actually need to start to build the dashboard and so on. So open question to understand if we see any blockers, or you foresee any blockers that could come our way that are going to prevent us to reach our goal. And so just to understand if we need something to the scope of our current work to be sure that we reach our goal.
I think, as Ruben says, it's 1 MR away from. We have 1 MR away from this.
We still need to build the dashboard after the one MR away, right? So I just want to be sure that this is like, it's going to get a lot of attention also because, we are going to show inefficiencies that are not only belonging to us, are also belonging also to other teams and so on. And we need to showcase these like pretty well, like if we are doing that in a infrastructure group conversation to where like we spend our time and which are the places where there could be initiatives to improve this time spent.
One possible problem I see is that we've had a little difficulty working with these kind of metrics. So like the delivery deployment completed, also the deployment SLO metric. I added a deploy version label to it, but I'm not sure how. This could just be my lack of knowledge about Grafana. I'm not sure how you can. So what you want to do is we have a deployment SLO graph. We want to be able to say there's a spike on the graph. You want to be able to go to that spike, see which deploy version it is from, and then jump to a dashboard for that deploy version. But I'm not sure how to do that. So we've added the deploy version label to the deployment SLO metric, but yeah, I've not been able to make the graph that we want.
Okay.
So that is one possible problem I see.
When you get a merge request, when you get a merge request open that, at least gets the base groundwork started, send me as a reviewer because I've done something similar, but not quite the same. And I would love to try to see if I can't help out if at all possible. Can't guarantee anything, but I can at least try.
Oh, on a related topic, so it's actually the next topic of conversation, but it's kind of related to this. So if anyone has any ideas for like how to utilize metrics like this, which basically have labels that kind of make them separate time series. So like a deploy version label effectively makes each metric value a separate time series. So if you have ideas for how to work with a metric like that to answer the questions that we need answered, there's an issue open 2946. So you can try your hand at the delivery, deployment completed, and deployment started labels metrics. The question we need answered from that is how many failed deployments we had. So if you have any suggestions for modifying the metric or any suggestions for how to build the dashboard, you can take up that issue or even just add comments to the issue.
I used last over time function because these sort of metrics, they are kind of constant. They are not changing. Yes, it is a new time series, but it's kind of, once it's pushed, it stays the same and doesn't matter at that time you take at which time you take the metric. You just take like last over time and you will have instead of time series, instead of range or whatever, instead of vector, you have like the number.
The problem here is that if
maybe it's not your use case, but for the merge request, I used last over time, so it
yeah,
worked.
I remember. Yeah, I don't actually know if it'll work or not. If you can add a comment to the issue, we can try that out.
Okay. Any other concern about 889? Let's say that we are not able to jump onto a particular deployment, right? And we just need to go to find it the old way. Go to find it when we see a spike. We'll still add the visualization of how much each component of deployment SLO is going to take end to end.
Yeah, I hope that at least shouldn't be too difficult.
Okay. Okay. We have all the issues open, right, for this work to be completed at this point. Okay, perfect. Any other questions, doubts, discussion points? Okay, so we don't have any demo for today. Hopefully next time. I'm thinking, so since we are 3 weeks away, please, if you find any blockers, implementation or whatever kind of blockers would come up, please let's not wait for any call to raise them up. Let's just bring them up on Slack and everything, so we're a bit more like faster reacting and try to unblock people. So keep this in mind. Another thing I wanted to add actually on the last point, do we have anybody, I don't know, in observability, reliability, or like observability group that could help us to understand if what we want to implement is feasible or not, with deep understanding of this problem space? Anyone knows? No. Okay. Then thank you for the discussion points. Let's go back to our OKR. It's going to be very welcome. And I wish everybody a nice long weekend for whoever is going to be off. I guess everybody except Ruben, right? Yeah, probably.
Ahmad also.
And Ahmad, right? Ahmad. And Ahmad. So have a great time and see you on Tuesday, I think, with most of you. Bye.